Ryan, I'm glad you're here. Here we go. So that was an interesting time with Mr. Beams, wasn't it?
Yeah,
What a
super
kind,
interesting.
how kind was that? But I wanted to,
Just he's so involved in everything. He spent a whole life like that, and just being able to hang out with people like him, it's inspiring to me. I would imagine to just about anybody to be around him. So I'm really grateful to have had him tonight.
it's just so many things I paralleled with him through my whole
I felt the
career.
synergy going between the two of you
I
like
mean,
I've never felt before.
we've done all that. I mean, we've
Yeah.
done it all, and experienced the kind of the thrill, really, of success of that all for years. It was fun, and
Yeah, thrill's the right word that I'm
but
picking up.
but here's a new subject, and
Okay.
if we may, I'm going to have you rewind your memory bank to your previous um, life,
Okay.
your religious orientation.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
People are not going to remember this, so um, you were a monk for 10 years
Yeah. Yeah.
in Rome,
I was.
and very involved in the church, and obviously.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell you a story, and you tell me if there are. Do you think there are interventions from God in our everyday lives?
I absolutely do. And I'm not saying that because, you know, it's a cool thing to say or like that's from my own personal experience. It's the same with faith and religion. I do not try to convince anybody that, God exists. What I would say is like, if you care, ask God to show you who God is, not your preacher, not your parents, not your friends that are trying to proselytize or whatever. Just honestly ask God, like, who are you? Please show me who you are. And that's been my experience, even though I was raised, in a church community and faith community. Um, I got to a certain point in life. It was following that monastic experience of 10 years of my life. Where I had a crisis of faith. And that's when I told God, okay, God, like, I've been living my life asking you to guide me this whole way. And now my life seems to have come to a place where it exploded. I mean, a lot of people could probably have this experience, who knows, in a marriage or something like that, they were like, hey, thought I was on the right path and it just went to pieces. And so I was in that kind of situation. And
But I'm talking about life on a day-to-day basis, and the things that, I mean, there seem to be times, and that's a story I wanted to set this story up to say that I found it to be impossible, the odds to be impossible to not have some sort of intervention. Now you can say,
yeah,
uh, well, I don't believe in that, and that's okay with me, right? I think I've
exactly.
slowly become
I,
convinced that
I like, one of the things I do is I'm a teacher and I tell my students like, hey, is there an atheist in the classroom here? Because we're going to talk about theology and you're the one that's going to make this interesting because you're going to ask the real questions that matter. The rest of us, we're just kind of floating along, not ruffling the waters because that's the polite thing to do. But no, I want somebody to ask the difficult questions. But yeah, back to what you're saying, like
that sets the tone for this story I'm going to tell you,
okay.
and I wanted you to comment on. So I had to go to Florida. I sold my house in 4 days. I had to pack, and I took my car trailer with me, an enclosed car trailer that I would normally all these hot rods around in, and I packed it full of our stuff, golf cart, everything that we had to have out of that house, because I had to be out of there on a closing on Friday and be back here for a closing on Monday. And that's when we had the snowstorm that came through.
Yeah.
I mean, like 7 or 8 inches of snow and rain and
it was more than that. It's like Louisville hasn't had that much snow in like 32 years.
Yeah, I mean, the worst snowstorm, and that's the time I had to travel. So, you knew I flew planes for 25 years, and I'm like, if I was flying a plane, I wouldn't go straight up 75, yet that's the route I needed to take from the Daytona Beach area straight north to get to Louisville. That's
a long drive. It's a good drive, but it's a long
900
drive.
miles.
Yeah.
So I thought I will go over 10, which goes across the state of Florida through
Yeah.
Tallahassee. But anyway, I didn't really want to take all the interstates because I'm pulling this trailer. And I got on some back roads, 4-lane back roads that wound their way through. And then I was going to take 65 up to get behind the storm. That
Yeah.
was the whole concept here. So the storm has already gone through or was going through. And if I get on the back side of this, um, in the next 3 days, that was Friday, I could make it to Louisville for my real estate closing on Monday.
Yeah.
Okay, so that sets the stage. It's now dark. It's maybe in the high 30s. It's raining because it was just warm enough to not be freezing. If it would have been 5 degrees colder, we'd have had 6 inches of snow, but instead we had 6 inches. I mean, it rained.
Yeah.
It was just warm enough to not be snow. And I'm driving through that, and the
Mhm.
trailer was super heavy with a lot of stuff in it.
Mhm.
And this tire's probably 7 years old. I probably had that trailer 7 years. Anyway, Lisa, my significant other,
Yeah.
looks out.
Dear
I
Lisa.
said, "Man, I kind of feel something." And I said, look back if you can out the window of that trailer. I said, "Can you see anything back there?" And she goes, "Oh my God, it's on fire.
Whoa.
It's on fire."
Okay.
The tire had come loose, double axle trailer, so I couldn't really tell
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
But the tire caught on fire as it was grinding around, and it shot the tire all the way off the trailer. Now the rim's on the ground. I'm shooting sparks, and I'm just pulling in to a little town. And the first street to the right I took with my trailer.
Yeah.
Now there I sit. It's 8 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. It's raining. Lisa's crying. She goes, "What are we going to do?" And
Oh,
I'm
it's
like, "Well,"
scary.
but when I pulled up in front of um, a volunteer fire department that was closed. But that just happened to be the street I turned on, and a quarter of a block down, there's the vol. I just pulled up in front of it because there was space to pull in. And I thought, well, maybe I'll call somebody. So I got out of the truck and I went over to see if I could get a phone number, see if I could get some help. And I there was a guy pulling a trailer, a Chevrolet truck pulling like a car trailer
Yeah.
that turned in front. And Lisa said, "There's that guy. He might know." And she goes, "Talk to." Anyway, I hold my hand up in the rain. He stops. He goes, "You need some help?" Let me get to my cheat sheet here. I'm in Whingham, Georgia,
Mhm.
and Dylan Chester was the guy in the truck. So Dylan says, "You need some help?" And I'm like, "Well," I tell him the story. The tire blew off. I don't know what all. I don't know if the rim's damaged. He said, "Well, let me make some calls." He goes, I do have a floor jack on the trailer, so let's get the tire off and see where we stand." And I said, "Well, I'm going to need an impact wrench to get the lug nuts loose." He goes, "I have an impact wrench lying on the seat, but I don't have a socket." I said, "I have a socket set, impact sockets."
Boy.
Okay. And so we jacked the trailer up in the rain. He's helping. He's like, "I got this." Vroom, 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 we get the wheel off, and he goes, "Well, the rim doesn't look too bad because, again, the tire's no longer there. We don't have to take the tire off. The tire left."
Yeah.
But we kind of felt around the rim. It's in the dark. And I said, "Well," he goes, "Look, here's what we got to do. Uh, Bainbridge, Georgia is 12 miles away. And that's where the closest, this is a town where I'm at in Whingham, maybe 500 people. The city of Bainbridge is slightly larger,
Mhm.
12 miles away." He said, "They got a Rural King there, and they'll probably have a trailer tire, that would work for you." I said, "Well, that's good, but how am I going to get the tire on the rim?" He goes, "Well, I got a buddy, Wayne and Kenny, and Kenny, I think they call him K2. So, and they're gonna uh, they're gonna come to the Rural King and put the tire on." I said,
You're
"How are they going to put the tire on?" He goes, "Oh, they'll get it on." Well, okay. So call them when you get there. I call them. I said, "What?" They actually had the tire. I measured the diameter of the tire. To make sure the tire was tall enough, right?
Yeah.
Because it got two tires. I measured the tire. Yes, they got the tire. I get the tire. I got it in, and I call him, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I'm like 2 miles away. I'll be right there." Comes in, looks at it. We're looking at the rim inside the Rural King
Yeah.
inside. got it in the shopping cart. He goes, "Just push the shopping cart on out here. I'm gonna put the tire on." I said, "Well, it's 40 degrees and raining, and how are we gonna do that?" He goes, I'm gonna do it by hand. You're gonna do it by hand in the parking lot."
Mhm.
You ever seen anybody do that?
I actually have. Ashley Bennett,
So
my
he
friend,
had
will do that.
tire
Yeah.
irons, as they would refer to them,
Yeah.
a couple of them this long, pried the tire on there. I said, "Well, we do need to clean the rim up first." He goes, "Well, I have an air compressor built in the truck, and I have my air tool. I can clean it up with a little wire brush." I said, "Man, if we just had bead sealer." He goes, I have bead sealer to put around the, the edge of the rim, make it
Yeah.
seal well."
Yeah.
All right, so 10 minutes later, I have the tire on the truck. I mean, in my truck.
Yeah.
I'd left the trailer in Whingham. I'm in Bainbridge. He mounts the tire. I throw it in the truck, and I'm headed back the 12 miles to. And when I get back there, I got Dylan Chester, I got Brad Long, I got Bo Height, and a number of other guys all standing around, about 12 of them. Some of them connected to the volunteer fire department. And they said, "We're just here to help you,
Oh,
and we're going to get this tire on."
that's
They,
my America right there.
they jumped on, uh, I mean, everything they could do.
Yeah.
And
I know. For a complete stranger.
didn't know me from Adam
That's
and had no reason to do this. When I first pulled Dylan over, he said, "Well, can you give me 10 minutes? I've got the reason I'm over here. I was at the restaurant picking up food for my family. Let me run it home and I'll be right back." This is a Friday night now. And
wow.
do you think he had other things that he might want to do?
Maybe on a Friday night, yeah, with a family.
He's with the
Just
railroad, worked all week. A lot of times he's out of town.
really
And when I got home about a week later, he called and he goes, "You make it home okay? Everything
no
good?"
way.
Yeah. And because we had phone, I mean, we were back and forth on the phone. "Did you get the tire? Did they get the tire mounted? Can you get that back to blah, blah, blah?" And then first he was driving around town to see if we could get a tire on a rim. It just went on and on and on.
Yeah.
The kindness. But what are the chances that the first person I would see would have a jack, a battery powered,
Impact.
not a drill, but an impact wrench, right? To be able to have the, right, take the lug nuts off. I had a spare, but it was about a 16th of an inch off a 6 lug wheel that didn't fit.
Yeah.
So that was going to be a long night without him. And
Yeah.
what do you think of that?
I think it goes back to kind of what we started with is like there's something going on in the universe, and I call that God. You might call it love. You might call it something in humanity, and there is no way that we could. I mean, there would be a way to mathematically figure out the odds of all of that coming together, but why even bother? Because it's outstanding. It's amazing.
So I looked at my watch
And
as we were pulling away with the trailer. And they hooked the trailer up, by the way, because I'd unhooked it to go get this tire fixed. And
really,
they're like, "Okay, back her up."
yeah,
Wanted to get everything hooked up. They did everything they could do. And at the end, I said, "What do I owe you?" And they said, "Dude, you don't owe us anything." I said, "Well, here's $100. I don't know what you drink, but whatever you do, go get one."
look at
And
everyone's giving people
I know,
$100,
$100 flying around.
donations here,
Can you
loving
imagine
each
getting
other.
$100?
I think that's so sweet. I mean, I
That's
really,
something,
really do.
really something very how classy. But I just wanted to. I told him I was going to do this, and here,
Good,
I was.
and it's right to acknowledge that. I do think it's important to know to take note too. Like, God, whatever God is in this universe, works through people, right? And by the way, you only got returned to you the kind of respect, attention, and love that you have shown to other people in your life in that moment when it really, really counted.
I try,
Yeah.
but I didn't always try.
Oh, I know.
I'm
I
a
mean,
better.
we're
I'm a better person.
right.
I've become a better person. I think more about it, and the more you invest, I used to treat God like Santa Claus. I want one of these. I want a Rolex watch. Please help me get this deal. But even down to the reason I was in Florida is my house wasn't for sale. A realtor I know down there called me and said, "Brian, you want to sell your house?" And I was looking at a house and you know the
Right here.
house,
Yeah,
right?
for sale
That
that
was,
you wanted.
but I hadn't looked at it yet. But that was Monday, and on Friday, I sold the house. On Saturday, I went to look at the house. On Saturday afternoon, I made an offer on the house, and
And then I went by because I was here and I took a bunch of photos of it in the snow, looking
yes,
all really, really, really good. And you had not even seen that house yet?
yeah, I saw it before, but I'm
Okay, all right.
saying I got a call before I'd looked at that house, before
Yeah,
I'd even looked at it.
yeah.
Did I want to sell my house? And I said, well, I'm going to go look at another house. Can you, I'll sell it, but you got till, that was on a Monday. You got till Friday
Yeah.
to make it happen. And they did, and ended up paying cash for it.
The other thing about this story is you appreciate it.
Well,
Like like what I mean by that is you didn't just let it happen then just walk away and be like, "Huh, what a freak thing. How does all that you just and then leave it." Like you stopped and taken note of it. You have a podcast where you have the opportunity to kind of say thank you to these people.
yeah, it's gratitude, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And you've done that.
They may not
That's
know how much I appreciate that. They couldn't have given me $10,000 that night and made me any happier. I
mhm,
was in trouble. I
yeah,
mean, trouble. I
yeah,
mean, didn't know what I was going to do. What was I going to do without them? I mean,
yeah.
just I don't know. It
Oh,
was
I think everyone's been in those kind of situations before where you're like, I'm toast. If that person or that thing hadn't happened or something, I was toast.
but I do think that rewards, like I'll call it a reward, can appear out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then I got home safely in that snowstorm, and that tire held up the rest of the way home, still in the trailer, never still using it. But I just thought those guys may never know. I mean, it was a couple hours out of their life. Didn't seem like they were too worried about it,
Yeah.
but it meant a lot to me.
All
And
my heart wants them to know how much it meant.
yeah,
And I actually I think by doing this, you're going to cause them the moment to reflect and be like, "Wow, I'm so glad I could be there for Brian Marshall when he needed me." Yeah.
as you know, I mean, 20 years ago, especially I'm in a Bible study with a lot of guys that I was in a fraternity with in college, and when I 3 years ago I started going to the Bible study that they had started. There's about 18 of these guys, and most of them have laughed. They said if we could have bet on a person that we thought might join Bible study when 40 years ago when we were in college together, you'd have been last on the list. And the most
I
needed,
felt that coming because
yeah,
I
the
felt that
most
coming.
needed, but the last on the list, Brian.
Yeah.
And I have since gotten a guy who professed to be atheist to come to Bible study. He attends every week now
Yeah. Yeah.
because I can talk to people different than other people can talk to people.
You
I talk to
can.
them differently.
Thank goodness.
I do. And
Really. I know. I mean that sincerely.
they buy my story.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell you a
Because it's
story.
authentic.
Yes,
And you lived some rough life and
I have.
experiences.
I have.
Yeah. Just like them.
As rough and tumble as it gets,
Yeah.
and as ungodly as it gets. And
Yeah.
the only thing
And
I said,
yet
I said
those
it's,
miracles keep coming into your life.
well, if you change your life, if you can change your life and say, okay, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done it, but I did do it, and
Mhm.
if I can gain forgiveness from that, I'll try to live a better life. And it was
I
they have
believe in
said to
that
me,
stuff.
we
Some
won't be
people don't.
sinless, but we'll sin less.
Sin less.
We won't be sinless, but we'll sin less. And let's just try to be better people, and let's just try to do what we say we're going to do and follow through and be a. And so I have, and
Yeah. And
and
when I tell my young female students that are 16 and 17 years old to ask God to show you who God is, that's what I mean, is those kind of experiences. So be careful because if you ask, you're gonna get an answer.
I
Okay.
tell you what, I mean, I hear many times a response in my head to
Yeah.
questions that I ask. You ever have that? A
Very
lot of people
much.
say they don't at all, but I do.
I do. Yeah.
And it's so funny about today because this has gone full circle. I'll tell you, the culmination. I was angry about losing my dog. It meant
Of
a lot to me,
course.
and
Yeah.
that was, that's still a. But anyway, I told God, I said that hurt, and that was, a week ago, and I said, "Man, I was really close to him. He's just my buddy. I, I could tell you 1,000 stories, but he was my buddy." And anyway, I didn't hear anything, not one word. But today, we're having to move again because I bought another house, and I'm like, what do I do with this house? House sales are kind of in the toilet right now. They're not going great. What am I going to do with this house? And do I sell it? Because now's really not the time. Do I rent it? I'm scared to rent it to anybody that comes
Hmm.
along. I mean, I'm scared of it.
Yeah.
A house that's just not. I mean, it's anyway. Um,
We all know what you
Cam-
mean.
Cameron, uh,
Right here,
our
our
Cameron,
producer.
our
Yeah.
producer, texts me and he goes, "My lease is coming up. Do you have any houses for rent or
No,
lease
no.
today?"
That is wonderful.
And I got Boo back Tuesday. He came back to me in a box
Yes. Yeah.
but I wanted to. I'm still going to take him with me,
Good.
and I didn't want to have him bury him at that house. I knew I'm moving.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what I chose to do with Boo, and
So,
but that's when I heard the voice in my head that said, "Today," he said, "Here's the answer to your question. Most dogs live 8, 9, 10 years. You had Boo 17. Be thankful. You had your parents who you loved to 94 and 96, and they lived twice as long as a lot of people lived,
yeah.
and you got twice the amount of time with your pet. So just be thankful. And by the way, I mean, so you asked what to do with your house, and there's your answer.
Yeah.
He's coming tomorrow to look.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't it?
It's really important to you. It's one of those things that, it's been bothering you. I know we've talked about it,
Yes.
and you got that answer like that.
I'm not. I mean, I'm not sure that it's going to be for
No,
him, but
no.
but
I
I,
might.
yeah, I wanted to talk to you about. I'm just saying this all happened quicker than I could get to you. I just want to talk about if you're willing. I could have gotten angry with God about my dog. I said, but I just told him,
Oh, yeah.
"Damn, man, broke my heart."
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and okay, I'm supposed to carry. I went to Bible study Monday night and talked about him, and everybody listened. And here he comes tonight and says, "Here's $100 donation for your dog to the Animal Association
Yeah.
that I support." That's very kind.
It is. It was really touching.
But isn't that? I mean, I go back to you can either get in a circle or be on the outside looking in. I was on the outside looking in for many, many years. God never spoke to me. I wasn't worried about God. I was worried about a cocktail,
Mhm.
trying to find some women to run around with and see what trouble I could get into. While my whole life was making money, but at any cost, buddy. And now I don't do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a weird thing. I don't know what to do. I was in a monastery for 10 years. Now I'm trying to make some money because it seems like the right thing to do. I came from base actual poverty, owning nothing 15 years ago to now, being blessed with several companies, amazing friends. Um, just, I've had some great jobs. And um, I don't know where I was going with that actually, but
Well, I think
it was back to the idea of, well, can you, like who's your God gonna be? Mammon or money or the creator or what? Uh, I don't like the platitude responses to some of those things. Like ask God to show you what that means. And right now in my life, that means money's not my God, and I really don't want money to be my God. I
then
want,
it
Go-
will
I, w-
appear.
yeah, I don't want God to be my God. But
You know what I would say? I want hard work to be my God.
there we
Give
go.
me
There we
enough
go.
opportunity for me to work hard,
Yeah,
and the
that's
money
true in
will
your life.
appear. But
Yeah,
don't say. I mean, it's not like the song "The Money for Nothing" and the chicks are free. No, they're not free, and the money's never for nothing. But the work can be, right? You just
yeah.
got a job at putting awnings on that hotel, and I'm sure that was a
Yep.
wonderful contract.
Oh, it was. It was great fun. It's satisfying because you get to see your work on the wall. You get to brag about it. On the
And
Brian
the
Marshall
fourth
podcast show?
and the 4th story of that hotel was my suite for a year and a half.
No way.
You got on the elevator and everybody else got on the elevator and punched a button, but I turned the key and everybody always said, "Well, you must be very important." But the elevator's open and that was my room. And I
Oh,
had 4
really?
bedroom, 4 bathroom with a rooftop deck and everything on that
No way.
French Lick hotel.
Yeah.
But man, it was
Very cool.
I called it Fed Med. I said, "I'm living well, but I'm down here by myself. What do you do?"
Yeah,
Mm.
I know.
Long nights.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I ran back to Louisville every weekend, but I spent the week down there and, well, tomorrow's Friday. But anyway, I don't want to get off track too far. I just want to say to those guys,
Thank you.
so again, to Dylan and Wayne and Kenny and Brad and Bo, you did a good job. And and I hope someone in that city sees this and thanks you as well. That's what I want that to be. But anyway, I've enjoyed our
Agreed.
opportunity to do this. Haven't you? It's been fun.
So much.
You said to me, I just want to help you on it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
But
Eh,
no plan. I just thought, yeah, sounds like fun. And I feel like, I looked today, 43,000 people in the last 6 weeks have watched us. 43,000 people.
and
And I
you
told you.
always say, I could be home on my couch watching TV, but this we're gonna do this. Like, let's do something. Yeah.
So just like it's what I've always done.
Yeah.
I have done something rather than, and I encourage other when when we tell these stories,
Yes.
it
Listen
has
to
nothing
this.
to do with us. It has everything to do with there. I had some encouragement. It's so funny. He talked when John was on tonight. He talked about John Carson. Well, that was the guy that told me to buy the house. You mentioned John
No
Carson.
way.
Yeah, that's the guy
That's
that
the first.
my first mentor that took me under his wing and said, "I'll teach you to be the tourism guru." And he said, John Carson that built the Marriott
Yeah.
and
I didn't know if he was talking about Johnny Carson on the
no,
tonight.
talk about John Carson that built the Marriott, the Louisville Marriott.
But
And
you,
that guy I ended up
yeah,
working for and going to his,
that story of him mentoring you and
Yes.
you responding to his offer to be mentored as a young guy
24 years old. Yeah.
at, I don't know, O Dark 100 on Saturday morning. He's like, if you want some help on practical things in life, you meet me here. And he said one day at one of those meetings, first of all, he was surprised that you bothered to show up.
He was shocked.
You
It was a
religiously
test.
were there.
It was a test. I look back now and I'm like, I don't mean to interrupt, but
Please do.
I'm 24 years old, Saturday morning at 8:00. Well, guess what? You can't be out all Friday night and be there sharp and ready to go at 8:00 on Saturday morning. So it got me home. But the reason I mean, he owned the Marriott. He had everything you'd want to have. I mean, the best cars, the best. He invited me to his house for dinner, and you ought to seen his house. But it had a helicopter pad out back at his
Wow.
home, but he had me out for dinner. I don't mean me and 25 other people. Just Brian,
He-
why don't you come out the house?
I love that.
And the only thing he did was talk to me constantly about what I could do
Mhm.
and what I should do and how to think and how to borrow money and how to invest in real estate and how to cut a deal. And
Isn't
he was the best at it.
Isn't that kind of what this show is?
That's it. That's the giving back part.
You're sharing
If I
back.
can tell that to somebody else, and when we talked about, I just saw where they said this house is for sale in Detroit for $1. I'm like, well, we just talked about that. I said, go buy a house for $1 and get busy. Remember that we
Yeah.
talked?
Do something. You
Do
always say.
something.
Yeah, just do something.
So if you got
it will
$1, you get
develop.
a house. Now, not where you want it, but you're not going to get the right. You're not going to get the house of your dreams, but you get the deal of your dreams.
Deal your dreams. Yeah.
So, I mean, if nothing else is clicking with you, you could take $50, hitchhike to Detroit, buy a house, and start working on it. I mean,
And-
I said, I'm a beach ball underwater. You can't stand on me hard enough. I'll come back the moment you take your foot off my beach ball or move to this. I'll pop back up, and here we go. And I've lived a life of that, and I've lived the most amazing life, and I know you have too.
Well, and Mr. Carson came to on one of those meetings on one of those Saturday mornings at 8 o'clock. He said, "Today, you're going to go buy whatever this was. It was a
He
piece of
point
real estate,
All right, he talked about
and you did,
the old Ingram sand pit,
and you
which
thought,
was
there's
a
no
lake.
way,
A
there's no
lake
way.
in the middle of town was the sand pit.
Oh yeah, I know where that's at.
He built a Marriott hotel on it,
Oh no way.
and behind that, he built apartments, and they were called Lakeshore.
Yeah,
It was called Lakeshore Drive, and they had Lakeshore Apartments.
I was just looking at some houses to buy up right in that area, and I found it while I was walking
So
there. Neighborhood.
across, and then he built Derby Ditter Playhouse and a number of other things. Their Wave Tech swimming pool.
Really?
And he pointed, but it was right behind the Marriott, and we're in the second story of his office. And so he pointed across the lake and said, "Those condos." A friend of mine, who I since became friends with, Louise Edlin Corso was the team at that time, Realty. They bought those apartments and were going to turn them into condos. And he said, "I can get you financed, and you go today." You've heard me, told me, you've heard that story. Go today and buy one. And I hesitated. I said, but, and he goes, "Today. Go buy it today."
Yeah.
And I did.
And you did.
I went right over there, and I got the second story that overlooked the lake, overlooked the swimming pool. I decorated it to the hilt. It was really nice. And I'm 24 years old, and I have a condo on the lake, and I worked right there. My office right there.
Yeah.
I could walk to work. And
Oh.
he knew it. But a year later, because of his efforts and training, I became the executive director, 25 years old, moved to Richmond, Indiana to start the convention bureau. I'm 25 years old. And,
And when
I sold that condo and made
when you were
20
able to
grand.
sell that condo, not long,
I sold it right then. I sold it
Yeah.
immediately. And I made $20,000
which for
in a year.
at that time that was an amazing return, and
An
you
amazing
went on,
amount of money.
yeah, but you rolled that into the next thing, into the next thing, into the next thing, into the next thing, and so
6
that impact.
houses in 6 years.
So
I did.
that impact that he had in your life, because you were open and receptive to it, it really directed a lot of things in your life and benefits that.
And I could keep that right on going. And then
I know.
I met some guys that were going to do a hotel, and they said, "You want to be partners with us?" And I said, "In what?" "A Radisson hotel." "Want to be a partner?" They said, "If you'll run it, we can get the money, but you got to sign on it, $17 million. You want to sign on the dotted line?" I'm 30 years old.
Yeah.
Let's do it, man. I
Let's
don't
do-
fail. I don't fail often. What's the worst that can happen? I told you that. Well, the worst that can
If you're
happen.
going to fail, you're going to fail hard, aren't you?
Yeah,
Yeah. Doesn't mean don't be smart. It doesn't mean you weren't smart, but yeah,
But risk is required too.
it is. Yeah. And
I try to bite off as much as I can. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
Like-
I think I do too.
As much as I can, because I'll tell you one other quick story. The house I'm in right now. The house I'm in right now, I saw that they had it up for a short sale, the one next door to me, and I was able. Took a long way around. I bought it for $137,000 10 years ago. 137. I could probably get 350. I rent it out right now, 350,000.
Oh yeah.
And then while I was doing that, the guy next to me said, "You want to buy mine? They're sister houses."
Yeah.
I said, "How much?" He goes, "Take 150,000 for it." And I didn't hesitate. I said, "I'll take it." He goes, "Well, it's rented out right now. I can't get you inside." I said, "I don't need to see inside. I know what a house looks like." And he goes, "You're going to buy it without looking at it?" I said, "I am." But now all of a sudden I've got 3 houses.
Yeah.
And one I just closed on. But anyway,
And the right, you had a sense of the right buy-in price, and you're like, hey,
it's
this
a
is the
steal,
time
man. It's a
it's
steal.
time to do this.
And the house I had sold for enough money to pay cash for these 2 houses.
Wow.
So now I got 2 houses that I sold a house, paid off my house. It was a really nice home, but I was able to sell it. I sold it a little cheap because I wanted the money fast.
Yeah.
Bam, now I got 2 houses. And somebody said, "Your house, you sold it cheap, and now it just sold for $450,000 5 years later." I said, "I know, but I took that money and was able to buy 2 houses, and now those 2 were
Are worth
7 or 8
more than that.
7 or 800,000.
Yeah, I was
between
going to
the
say
two.
that's
Right?
right. Yes.
So I doubled my money anyway. That was all. Is that lucky? I mean, that's how fast you can make $1 million. That's how fast, or lose it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But you gotta hustle. I mean, you've got to hustle, and you gotta have help, a little a little help from here and a little help from here, and
Yeah.
help yourself while
Little
you're at
help.
it.
Yeah.
A little help like this.
Yes.
We got to talk about it. I want to tell other people. It's not bragging. It's explanation. I want to be the John Carson that said, "Go do that today. Go do that."
Yeah.
You might not if somebody doesn't say that. Anyway, that's the end of my. I just wanted to tell that story, and I appreciate those guys. That meant a lot to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Well, that's a nice wrap considering that that's exactly what you're doing by creating this show to talk to other people and encourage them to follow their passions, to be encouraged. You know, life is interesting. You know, if you live in a small little town and you're like, how could tourism take hold here? Have an ice cream festival.
I don't care if we're going to play the world's largest. Um, I mean, croquet tournament. I mean, you could do
Right.
anything, couldn't you? A festival.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know, I said one time, I mean, if you got enough music and enough liquor and enough pretty women, I mean, you could have a party in the cesspool and a lot of people will come, couldn't you?
Talking about what
You got
draws
to have a
people.
draw.
Yeah. What draws people.
What draws people.
Yeah.
So, you know, look at Woodstock. I mean, that was
Yeah.
just a guy's idea, right? But he
And
just didn't know you couldn't do it.
I know.
So 500,000 people show up for his 3-day festival, and it's still being talked about today. That was 1969. That was a pretty good lick.
And
And
still asking, how did that happen?
how'd that happen? And people from all over, no internet. How are we going to tell people about this?
Yeah.
So anyway, so we said when we started this, life's passion. What's your passion? Well, I want to do a music festival. Well, by golly, why don't you do that today? Let's start today.
Yeah.
And maybe we can start one, and maybe 100 people come to the first one, and in 10 years, maybe we can have 100,000 people come. We got to start. You cannot get there without starting.
Yeah.
And have you ever read "If" by Rudyard Kipling?
Yes.
I
It was
love that.
Muhammad Ali's favorite poem.
Whose?
Muhammad Ali's favorite poem.
Really?
Yeah.
Never heard that before.
If you go to the Ali Center, they will recite the poem to pictures of his life.
Then I got to go because I haven't been
It's
there.
really good.
But you know where I saw it? On the wall of a youth hostel in Luxembourg, of all places. I was in a youth
Wow.
hostel in Luxembourg, and I read it on the wall.
Wow.
And I kept looking at it, and I kept reading it, and I wish I could recite it. But here's the crux of the matter: we're studying John right now, and in our Bible study.
Yeah.
And I said, well, that must have affected Rudyard Kipling because I said his poem talks about walking with kings and peasants and not knowing the difference between the two,
Yes.
and gambling. Here's the thing: on do you gamble on these real estate? Gamble everything on a game of pitch and toss, as they referred to it, and lose, and kneel down with worn out shoes and rebuild without muttering a word of loss. And he said, and it goes on,
That's right.
but it says, if you can do these things, you'll be a man, my son. And
Muhammad Ali, he took that to heart. He loved that poem.
Brian did too.
Yeah, and I do too. It's super inspiring. Look it up
is.
if you haven't seen it.
I'm not saying him replace the Bible with it. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
in addition to, here's a man that thought enough that, and I always thought about that, walking with, so many people will run after a big shot. Oh, he's a big shot. I'll run after him. And people don't know sometimes that the person that you would pass by may be the bigger player.
Very true.
It's hard to size people up.
Yeah.
You never know who you're talking to and what horsepower they may have or not. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think the more people you meet, the more things you can do. And but I think life clears a pathway for those that are trying in unbelievable ways. But I try not to cheat people.
I think that's good.
I hustle hard.
Yeah. Hustle hard, play fair as much as you can.
I used to have a belt buckle that says success comes to those who hustle wisely. I think that's true.
I think it is too.
Anyway,
Yeah.
there's my
And
speech.
it's back to, I think that's what God put us in this world to do, by the way, with all this agency, intellect, free will. I actually think that that's what God expects of us. Some people are like, "Oh no, I got to like just keep it easy." No, go out there, test the boundaries, man. Like live.
Yes.
You know, like don't get to the end of your life and say, "Oh my gosh, I never lived." No,
Yeah.
do it today. Do it now.
You know, I somebody said, "Do you believe in hell?" And I said, "I've seen hell. Hell to me would be a dead end job, a house in a subdivision, a debt up to here, nowhere to go, no education, too many children, no money, and you bump along until you leave.
A sense of no hope.
No
And
hope."
life can
And those are a
give us a
series
lot of
of
circumstances like that.
I said, life or success is a culmination of all your decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Now you can,
and so build on yourself, right? And that's what my dad always did.
but
And
even if you're the beach ball underwater, you can come back pretty quick. I just said,
that's
I've
right.
told on this show so far, I said, here's two ways to make $1 million that I've seen, that I've participated in. There's 2 million bucks.
Notice who's sitting in the room with you?
Two
I'm
million,
listening. I'm all
right?
ears.
You got to get a building big enough, right, that you can rent it out and it pays for itself. All right,
Yeah.
there's a million. You got to buy $1 million building in 15 years. Your renters pay for it. Now that doesn't take a genius to do that. And then you
No.
find a couple of short sale homes that you think, damn, that was pretty nice.
Yeah.
I know they're worth more than $300,000. I'll take two of them. I would have tried to get five, and they said, "Well, Brian, can you afford to do it?" I said, "No, but I need a bologna sandwich." So I will. I mean, that's where I said I put myself up to here. I
Yeah.
try not to
In
drown myself, but
inactivity and
as much as I can chew
Mhm.
and just keep. I'm like, I'll muscle through this, right?
Yeah.
And if you, again, the harder you work, it's odd how
Yeah,
the
it's
luckier
like a
you get.
principle of energy. It's like the more that you work, the more that you do, the more possibilities of other things become apparent.
Yes, and then hang around people that got something going. I mean, not. I
There's a
don't mean
good
that
one.
can do something for you that you
Right.
could learn something from.
Yeah. Yeah.
John Beam, great
I
guy,
know,
got a
John
lot to
Bean.
say, right?
Yeah.
He's been involved in everything.
I was really surprised. I mean, it's
Claire Patnode, and I do her brochure. I got to show you that brochure sometime. It was killer. They thought it was the greatest thing ever.
I want to see it.
And anyway, it's life. Life is strange.
Yeah. We're going to keep
Who
going.
said that? The Doors.
You would know better than I.
Yes, it's in their song. We'll play. We should play that under.
The
That'll be the bed of
closing
music.
music. Yeah.
Da 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 da. Life is strange, but anyway, and indeed it is. I'm glad you're here, and I enjoy these.
I'm glad to
episodes.
be here. I'm glad you're here doing this show. Thanks.
I don't know where we're going.
We'll find out.
We're going to find out.
Yeah.
We're going to Croatia. I got to tell that story. So I hope the gentleman from Croatia, I'm going to send you your watch. He said, you don't have to send it to me. It's going to cost way too much. I'm like, I don't, because I gave watches away. If anybody's seen, we give watches away.
Yep.
And nobody registers to, anyway, the guy from Croatia, I said, send me your, I didn't know where he's from. I said, send me your address and I'll mail you a watch. We chose it. He goes, I'm from Croatia. I said, you're from Croatia and you watched our show? He said,
How
I did.
cool
I
is
enjoyed
that?
the show. I said, then if it meant enough for you to watch our show for an hour, well, I don't care what it costs. I'll mail the watch. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I know you will.
I will. And
Awesome.
why? Because I said I would. And
I know.
all right, man.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap.